Sports are a great way to get some physical activity in your life, while also teaching you some good life skills like teamwork, leadership, and discipline. For some, sports turn into more than just a hobby, providing an avenue for the greatest of greats to play these games professionally. For these elite athletes, it becomes a job. These folks aim to go out and forge a legacy for themselves in their respective field, while also providing millions of people something to talk about when they're stuck in the middle of an awkward conversation. So how about them Lakers, huh? In Fallout, sports share a similar cultural impact as sports in real life. However, there are certainly a few things that are a wee bit different between the game and our real world. This is the strange sporting world of Fallout. Hockey. We'll start with the coldest of the big four sports, hockey. And just like real life, hockey might be the least notable of the big four as well. But, to its credit, I believe it's the only sport in the Fallout universe to have its own faction associated with it. Let me introduce to you, Sudden Death Overtime. I know I've been critical of Fallout 3's Raiders before, but Sudden Death Overtime is probably the coolest Raider faction in Fallout 3, and one of the coolest Raider factions overall. They spawn in the game as part of the unmarked quest just for the taste of it. When exploring the Nuka-Cola plant's office section, the Lone Wanderer can find the corpse of a man named Winger Mercier. On the late chap's body is a note, titled Finding the Formula. The note asks Mercier to find the secret Nuka-Cola Clear formula and bring it to the Red Racer factory where the rest of his comrades will be waiting. If the Lone Wanderer gets the formula and heads to the factory, they will then be met by the gang's leader, a man named Ledoux, and two others. This is Sudden Death Overtime. The gang was made up of 4 members, each with a rank related to a position in hockey. There's goalie Ledoux, center Dubois, winger Gervais, and the late winger Mercier. Oddly enough, the team lacks any defensemen at all, perhaps alluding to the idea that they are all offense, fully aggro at any time. I'm not sure, but I'd wager it'd be quite difficult to play hockey without any defensemen, but that's just me. The gang's lack of a full team isn't the only mistake the group has made when it comes to replicating the sport of hockey. You see, Ledoux's true goal in life is to bring ice hockey mania back to America, a sport that his ancestors once played. He explains that his gang is the last known ice gang to exist. He said that every city once had their own ice gang, and thousands would show up to watch them all duke it out in these giant arenas. Ledoux and the rest of the group use hockey terms, but nearly all the time they're misused. He can administer a penalty to you, but that's typically a ref's job. He mentions that maybe one day he'll cross sticks again. That's sorta right, I guess. He refers to combat as a face-off. It's just all-around nonsense. But I guess you can't expect much better from a group whose whole identity surrounds a 360-year-old sport. What can you do? Football. Next up is likely the most iconic of the big 4 sports, football. Now, I'm quite a fan of American football myself. Go Cowboys. So this saddens me to say, but Fallout doesn't have a ton of references to America's game all too much. We know that members of Caesar's Legion use football pads for their armor. Surely it's not bullet or concussion proof, but it's better than nothing. Grafton High School in Grafton, West Virginia has a rundown football field with uprights and yard markings, the whole shebang. But perhaps the most interesting part of Fallout's football comes from the controversial Sierra Depot GNN report. Honestly, the whole report could probably get its own video, so maybe that'll happen in the future. But for now, we're going to focus on the transcript dated February 14th, 2075. It reads, "In sports today, the Little Rock Saints and the Anaheim Jets battled it out at Super Bowl 122. It was a real nail-biter, but Jay Montana IV managed to save the day by running the ball all the way from the 5-yard line to score the winning touchdown during the final seconds of the game. The final score, 95-90. The Anaheim Jets win Super Bowl 112. There are a couple things about this entry that stand out to me. Number 1, the team names. I'd have to assume that because the football championship is still called the Super Bowl, then that would mean that the Little Rock Saints and the Anaheim Jets are still playing in the National Football League, or NFL. This isn't the XFL or AAF or whatever other football league is out there right now. And currently, at least as far as I know, the NFL doesn't have a team in Anaheim or Little Rock. They do have the New Orleans Saints and the New York Jets, but no Anaheim or Little Rock. This likely means that at some point the New York Jets were kicked out of New York and moved across the country to Anaheim, and that the New Orleans Saints finally had enough and moved further north. Get away from the seaboard. I don't blame you. Number 2, it would seem that one of Joe Montana's descendants are following in the great's footsteps and is a professional football player. Now, based on the wording, they could either be a running back or a quarterback, but as Joe Montana played QB, I'd wager that his relative is also likely playing QB. Glad to see the GOAT's great-grandson is still playing. Number 3, a 95-yard quarterback scramble to win the Super Bowl is absolutely bonkers. At the moment, a 95-yard QB touchdown would actually set the record for the longest touchdown run by a quarterback, beating quarterback turned wide receiver Terrell Pryor's 93-yard touchdown run against the Steelers. And lastly, 4, the final score was 95-90. What the heck? Talk about optional defense, am I right? This score would absolutely shatter the current record today. The current record is 113 total combined points. This happened in 1966 between Washington and the New York Giants. Final score, Washington 72, Giants 41. And not only would the combined score of the game, 185, beat the combined score of any other game in the history of NFL, but both teams' individual scores, 95 and 90, would take spots 1 and 2 in terms of the most points scored by a single team. The previous record holder was Washington when they put up 72 against the New York Giants. Yeah, talk about a weird alternate history to the NFL, eh? But with the way that the rules are starting to favor the offense more and more, maybe one day we'll see a game similar to Super Bowl 112. Who knows? But unfortunately, that's all I got for American football. Oh, and I should also mention that Liberty Prime throws a nasty spiral on his nukes. Moving on. Baseball. Now, the big reason why American football takes a back seat is because the Fallout games more so focus on America's national pastime, baseball. Even before Fallout 4 and the introduction of Fenway Park as a major location, there have been plenty of references to the classic bat and ball sport. Is that the best way to describe it? Bat and ball sport? I don't know. Before the Great War, baseball was as common a sport as apple pie at dessert. Everyone played. People played just casually with friends all the way up to the major leagues. Similar to our real world, professional baseball consisted of 2 leagues, the National League and the American League, with a champion determined in a best of 7 called the World Series. And just like in real life, so too did the Curse of the Bambino happen, except Fallout's was much worse. The Curse of the Bambino was a baseball-related superstition regarding the Boston Red Sox's 86-year-long championship drought from 1918 to 2004. Prior to 1918, the Red Sox had been one of the most successful baseball franchises ever, winning 5 of the first 15 World Series titles. But when baseball legend Babe the Bambino Ruth was sold by the Red Sox to the New York Yankees in 1920, the curse was born. Following the deal, the Yankees went from schmucks to one of the most dominant baseball teams ever, managing to not only take the title of the most World Series wins from the Red Sox, but would go on to double the next highest team's World Series wins. As of today, the Yankees have 27 World Series championships, the next highest, St. Louis Cardinals, have 11, and the Red Sox are in 4th with 9 World Series. The Yankees absolutely gapped the Red Sox. And many superstitious people would credit this to the Curse of the Bambino. And although the curse was broken in 2004 when the Red Sox beat the Cardinals 4-0, in Fallout, Boston's professional team wasn't so lucky. The 2077 World Series saw Boston take on Texas to decide who would take home the championship. Coached by Dusty Wilder and led by star pitcher Matt the Missile Murda, Boston was hoping to clinch their first World Series win in over 159 years. Boston took a commanding 3-0 lead and was looking like easy favorites to take the whole series. The unfortunate part, though, was that Game 4 was scheduled on October 23, 2077. It was on that Saturday morning that global nuclear war broke out in the event known as the Great War. Game 4 would never be played. Boston would never win their World Series. The curse would remain unbroken. Outside of professional teams located in Texas and Boston, there was also the Capitol Congressmen, as well as teams located in Pennsylvania and Maryland. The West Virginian towns of Monongah and Charleston also had their own baseball teams, though these teams played in minor leagues. Post-war, nearly everything except for a few iconic bits have been forgotten about the sport. This has left much room for speculation. Mostly, this is done at the hands of a man named Mo. Mo Cronin is the owner of Swatter's custom baseball bat store in Diamond City. He is also a self-proclaimed baseball enthusiast. As such, he has no problem with explaining the rules of America's once national pastime to anyone who will listen. According to Mo, because it was a national pastime, people were mandated to play the game after work hours. You literally had to, else you'd be fined. Yeah, imagine having to pay money because you didn't feel like playing baseball that day. Jeez. Anyway, the sport of baseball consists of 2 teams armed with these modified baseball bats that he calls swatters. Using the swatters, each team would attempt to bludgeon the other to death. I believe scoring worked similarly. You'd run the bases and score a point after reaching home. The big difference was that the base runner would bring the bat along with them, as the opposing team would pelt the runner with baseballs. These same baseballs were then given to the children of any players who were killed as a sort of sick, twisted trophy. The killing player would sign the baseball and give it to the children of the players that they killed. It's quite messed up. I don't even know how Mo came up with this. Baseball gloves were intended to catch bullets, and baseball cards recorded each player's kill count. Yeah, Mo's version of baseball is pretty, fricked up. Mo mentions 4 local teams. There's the Concord Crushers, the Quincy Killmeisters, the Diamond City Demolishers, and the Lexington Ladies. I mean, the fact that Diamond City is a post-war settlement is proof enough that Mr. Cronin has sort of concocted his own version over the years, and even when corrected by an actual pre-war person, the sole survivor, he resigns saying that he likes his version better. Fair play, I guess. And now, I don't mean any disrespect to Mo Cronin, but I'm not convinced that that's his real name. I think it's a pseudonym. You see, Joe Cronin was a Hall of Fame baseball player for the Red Sox in the mid-1930s to 40s. His number 4 is actually retired and can be seen in Diamond City. So I'd wager that either Mo is related to Joe and that's why he's so invested in baseball, or the reverse. He got really invested in baseball by living in Diamond City and changed his name to match one of the town's greats. I know it's a video game and his inclusion is just as a reference to Joe Cronin, but if we come from the perspective of being in the universe, what are the actual odds that there's a man named Mo Cronin who operates a baseball-themed shop in the remains of Fenway Park? Like, 0, right? It must be a pseudonym. But that's just a wee little theory of mine. There's no way to actually prove it. Anyway, outside of Mo, some other post-war folks partake in the past tradition. A couple raiders can be seen running the bases at either Fordham Flash Memorial Field or another baseball field behind the Chrysler building, though for some reason I always imagine them to be using frag grenades as baseballs instead of actually baseballs. I don't know why, it just seems so fitting for raiders, you know? Basketball. Now, basketball probably has the least amount of information known about it in regards to the Fallout universe. We know 100% that it existed, as evident by basketballs being junk items and the various courts scattered throughout the wastelands. Pre-war, sometime in October, the DB Technical High School Bears beat the Springfield Hawks. I'm unsure about the score or anything notable, as that piece of information comes solely from the school's public announcement system. We also know that the university that once existed in the now ruined University Point had a basketball team. Henry Mitchell was on that team. Henry Mitchell also spied on a professor on behalf of the dean so that he could get a good GPA. Yeah, it's a bit weird. Yeah, that terminal entry is the only reason why we know that the University Point University had a basketball team. That's called top-tier world building. Outside of these amateur teams, basketball-like arcade games appear several times. There's the Hoop Shot game at Nuka World, Camden Park had its own hoop and ball game, the Tyler County Fairgrounds had their Nothing But Net game, and Wavy Willards Park had Top Shot basketball. I bet every single one of those was rigged somehow. Apart from pre-war, it was played post-war too. The Chem and Hoop Shack is an unmarked location in the forest region of Appalachia. The location name is quite literally all you need to know to get a gist about the place. It has a chemistry station, it has a shack, and it has a basketball hoop. No further information required. I'm just kidding. Underneath the basketball hoop is some chalk writing that says Trevor 04, David 51. It would appear that a bit of friendly competition was going on, and Trevor got absolutely smoked. A decent distance from the hoop is a wooden platform with 3 basketballs, implying that the pair were shooting from there. I'm not a basketball wizard myself, but I'd say that that distance is further out than your typical 3-point line. Someone signed David to the NBA stat. Victor Wembanyama who? I'm taking David with that first overall. Outside of the Big Four, a few other sports are mentioned in Fallout. I'll very briefly go over those. Boxing. The Chosen One can become a famous prizefighter through the new Reno Boxing Championship. After winning 4 bouts against the likes of Jock, Pete the Hurricane McNeely, Evan Holyfield, and Mike the Masticator, the Chosen One takes the title of champ. Hunting. The Addington brothers were the owners of the Black Bear Hunting Lodge in Appalachia. The pair would host a wide assortment of family-friendly events. These included squirrel shooting lessons and a hunting tournament. And although the pair would grow bored with hunting traditional game, the lodge would continue to host regular hunting tournaments well after the Great War thanks to its Huntmaster 4000 artificial intelligence unit. Darts. 180! I unironically love darts. Something about throwing a sharp metal projectile and trying to hit not the bullseye, but the triple 23 times to get the chance to yell 180 is some of the most fun I've had while drunk. And while I'm unsure if any professional darts happen pre-war, the fact that they exist in-game and can be used as ammo for the dart gun is enough for me. Bowling. There are actually a few bowling alleys in Fallout. The 2 most notable are Back Alley Bowling in the General Atomics Galleria and Beaver Creek Lanes in Far Harbor. Back alley bowling is manned by several robots named after bowling terms. There's 10-pin, split, strike, and kingpin. If one gives 10-pin the required 5,000 pre-war money to play, he will let the sole survivor have access to the lanes. It's kinda out of my budget actually. And then there's Beaver Creek Lanes. I mentioned them in my pre-war companies that aren't that bad video. In short, the business was managed and run by a group of friends who just really liked to bowl. The business fell on hard times and was forced to close indefinitely after a freak landslide damaged the building's roof. Did you know that I actually used to 5-pin bowl as a kid? I can't remember my average, and I wasn't really that good, but I did get the Most Improved Bowler award one year, so there's that. Soccer. Soccer was evidently a common hobby for the dwellers of Vault 76. A small pitch takes up the center of the vault's atrium. A couple soccer balls can also be found in Vault 51's nursery. Yeah, not a whole lot of soccer going on in America. I guess some things just don't change. Skiing. The many hills of the Appalachian region are home to several skiing lodges, most notably the Pleasant Valley Ski Resort and Sunnytop Ski Lanes. Only the most elite of elite East Coast Americans would be able to afford stays at the luxury resorts. It's no wonder that the people who were trapped at the resort following the Great War became the first ever wasteland raiders. When you're used to getting what you want as the top 1% of society, it would leave you with quite the shock when you realize that society is no more. And it would seem that it would lead these people to looting, pillaging, and kidnapping to get their way. A diabolical adult temper tantrum, fueled by chems of course. Golf. There are a few notable golf courses that we have seen throughout our adventures in Fallout's Wasteland. One of them is the rundown and retrofitted Camp Golf in the Mojave. Another is the White Springs Golf Course. There's also Hemlock's Holes, and lastly the private school Bolton Greens has its own private 9-hole golf course. Was never really big into golf myself. I think I'm just mega trash at it. And that is what, like 11 sports that appear in the Fallout universe? Of course there are more too, like table tennis, robot racing, demolition derbies, chess, and probably evidence of a bunch more. If you think I missed any, let me know, but we covered the big 4 American sports and a handful of other niche hobbies that people partook in. Also, I just want to know, when is Fallout going to include a football nuke that we can bomb down the field for like 90 yards? You know I can throw a football over those mountains. And that's all from me today. If you liked the video, be sure to share and subscribe. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.
We'd like to congratulate the basketball team on their victory against the Springfield Hawks last week. Go Bears!